You think your medals grant you the right to defy a direct order? Judge Madison Clark's voice rang through the courtroom, calm but edged with steel. Her blonde hair, swept into a meticulous bun, glimmered under the overhead lights. Every head in the room turned toward the defendant's stand, where a man in a worn military jacket stood without flinching. Master Sergeant James Cole, retired. 69 years old. Towering, weathered, and stone-faced. The scar trailing from his right eye to his jawline had long since faded into the crags of his skin, but the story it carried still pulsed in the silence. The courtroom was packed. A high-profile case, unusual circumstances, and a decorated veteran refusing to comply with a court directive, all the ingredients for public attention. The journalists had their pens ready. The cameras were rolling outside. Judge Clark narrowed her gaze. "Mr. Cole, I'm speaking to you." He gave a slow nod, then finally replied, "I heard you." "Then I'll ask again. Why won't you comply?" A pause stretched. Then, in a gravelly voice that carried through every pew, he answered, "Because some stories deserve to stay buried." Murmurs rippled. One woman gasped. The bailiff shot a glance at the gallery, raising a hand for silence. Judge Clark leaned forward. "This is a simple request, Sergeant." An afternoon. One school auditorium. A group of students who need to hear from people like you. "Then send someone else. I chose you." Another silence fell. Only this one was heavier. Tighter. Cole's gaze didn't falter. "Then you chose wrong." That morning, the request had seemed routine. Judge Clark had issued a directive that all veterans receiving court-referred public benefits participate in a one-day school program. They were to speak about discipline, service, and the meaning of civic responsibility. Nothing controversial. Except Cole refused. She didn't understand it at first. His record was impeccable. 3 tours. 2 Bronze Stars. A Purple Heart. A former drill sergeant turned advocate for at-risk youth. He'd spoken at events before. Why dig in his heels now? Her clerk, Thomas, had even warned her. "Cole's not defying you, Judge. He's protecting something." But rules were rules. If exceptions were made for one, the whole structure unraveled. Now, as she stared across the courtroom at a man whose silence spoke louder than defiance, she began to wonder if the rules needed to bend. "Master Sergeant Cole," she said, measured, "you are aware that refusing a judge's order can result in contempt of court?" "I'm aware." "And you're prepared for the consequences?" He nodded slowly. "I've spent nights in colder places than a county cell." Outside the courthouse, a soft drizzle tapped on the windows. Inside, Cole stood like a relic of another time. Unmoving. Stoic. But inside his mind, storms raged. He remembered the desert heat, the whir of rotor blades, the screams that no earplugs could ever mute. He remembered Corporal Avery, barely 20, who'd taken a sniper's round meant for him. He remembered holding him, promising his mother would know he was brave, that he wasn't alone. He remembered the mission that went wrong, the village that was supposed to be clear, the building that exploded. He'd buried 16 men on that tour. Their names were etched in his memory like scripture. Every time he spoke publicly, they resurfaced. Every word he uttered felt like betrayal, as if their sacrifice had become just another story for applause. That's what the judge didn't understand. She wanted inspiration. He carried ghosts. Judge Clark called for a recess, but she didn't leave the bench. She just sat there, studying him. Finally, she asked, "Can I speak to you off record?" Cole tilted his head, curious. A few minutes later, in her chambers, with the door shut and no court reporter present, she spoke. "My brother died in Fallujah," she said simply. Cole's eyes narrowed. His name was Lucas. He was 24. Engineer Corps. His Humvee hit an IED. She inhaled deeply. "We weren't close before he left. Argued too much. I thought joining the army was reckless. But after he died, I started studying everything. His journals, his friends, his commanders." She paused. "I became a judge to make sense of a world that stole my brother." Cole didn't reply, but something in his shoulders softened. "I'm not trying to parade you, Sergeant. Her voice cracked slightly. "I just want to make sure their deaths weren't for nothing. That kids today understand what it costs to wear that flag." Cole nodded. "That's noble, but it's also not your weight to carry." The courtroom reconvened. This time, the tension was different. The crowd sensed something had changed. Judge Clark addressed the court. This hearing was about compliance, about a civic responsibility. She turned to Cole. "But it's also about understanding." She stepped down from the bench, not with authority, but with vulnerability. "I asked Sergeant Cole to speak to students because I believed his voice could inspire. But I never asked what that would cost him." Gasps. A judge admitting fault? It was unheard of. She turned to face him. "James, I won't order you. But I'll ask you, not for a speech. Just your presence. Stand in that auditorium so they can see what service looks like. You don't need to speak. Your silence says more than words ever could." The room was still. So quiet the hum of the overhead lights felt deafening. Cole stared at her. Then, slowly, he extended his hand. "I'll stand," he said. "That's all I can give." She took his hand. "That's enough." A week later, the high school gymnasium buzzed with students. Some expected a lecture. Others just wanted to skip class. When Sergeant Cole entered, the room went silent. He didn't speak. He simply walked to the center of the stage, removed his cap, and stood. Behind him, a projector screen faded in with names. Dozens of them. Soldiers from his unit. Their ranks. Their ages. Their hometowns. One by one, the students stood. Not because they were told to, but because something deep, primal, and honest stirred in them. They saw the cost. They saw the weight. They saw the man who carried it so they wouldn't have to. When the story was covered by the local paper, the headline read, "One man stood in silence. A generation heard him." Judge Clark received dozens of letters. Parents, teachers, veterans, students. But the one that mattered most came from Cole himself. It read, "Thank you for asking, not ordering." That made all the difference. She framed it. Because sometimes leadership isn't about commands. It's about courage. And courage isn't always loud. Sometimes it stands silent, honoring ghosts with dignity.